Hello, lovely viewers. You are most welcome to our channel Poetry Online. In this video, we shall be presenting to you why candidates fail WAEC examination and at the same time, how to pass Wassce. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates on all our new videos. Once again, let us assure you of a very interesting discussion. Get ready for this lesson. Most of the times, candidates fail WAEC examination not just because of laziness or not knowing anything. No, there are so many reasons why candidates fail in WAEC examination. You can know everything in the book, but if you don't know the dynamics of Wassce, you're not going to make it, or you're going to make very poor grades or very bad grades. So sometimes when the results are released, people marvel. This candidate doesn't know as much as this candidate, but he has made better grades than the candidate who knows better. The thing is that those candidates understand the dynamics of Wassce. So when they go to the examination hall, they do what is necessary and they present things as they are expected to be presented and not just presenting anything at all in the examination hall. So in this video, we're going to discuss that with you. Just watch this video to the very end and learn everything that you need to know to pass WAEC examination. And also, this video will expose you to the mistakes that candidates have been making over the years so that you don't go repeating or making that mistake in Wassce. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about has to do with reading and following instructions. This is very important. It has been observed that candidates who fail or score very bad grades or poor grades in examination are those who don't read and obey instructions. Reading the instruction is not enough. You have to obey or you have to follow the instructions. So there are times that the instructions to be that answer this number of questions. Don't go against that. When you're asked to answer 3 and you answer 4, no examiner is going to award you any extra mark because you have gone the extra mile. Nobody has asked you for that. It only proves to the examiner that you don't obey instructions or you're not sure of what you're writing. So instead of writing 3, you decided to write 4. So that when the examiner is marking, he will mark the 4, then select the best 3, which is wrong because most of them will not do that. They'll rather use the one that you have scored very poor marks to score you. So it is very important to follow instructions. Don't write in margins. Answer every question on a fresh paper. It has to be very clear when one question is ending and when you're starting another. This is also very important. Then you don't have to tear any part of your answer booklet. Your answer booklet should be presented or submitted the way it has been handed over to you. Any changes in your answer booklet is going to cost you. Then again, do not use any other pen apart from a blue pen. Don't use red, green, or black pen in answering questions in Wassce. Most of the time, these are the colors that examiners use in scoring or marking your papers. So do not use them. It's going to conflict with that of the examiner's pen. So do not use red, black, or blue pens in answering questions. And do not use pencils. That's another thing. You can only use a pencil to draw, but don't use a pencil in writing out your answers. This is also very wrong. The next thing you have to do is to know if you're answering all questions or all the questions that you're answering are for candidates in your country. There are times that a question will specify that this question is for candidates in Ghana only, or this question is for candidates in Nigeria only. Then, if you answer a question that is for a particular jurisdiction that you're not part of, you're already out of the game. Yeah, you're out of the game already. So you have to answer questions from your country. Some papers will specify candidates in Ghana only, candidates in Nigeria only. So if you're in Ghana, you answer questions from Ghana only, or questions that are for all candidates. And questions that have sections, they have a way the questions will be distributed across all the sections for you to select. If you decide to answer all your questions from one section, you have yourself to blame. So you have to read and follow instructions. The instructions will guide you as to what you're expected to do. You have to write your index number, the subject, the date, and everything. So candidates who do not write their index numbers, it is assumed that the paper has no owner. So you have to write your index number. This is very important, your full name, then Fail anything that you are expected to fail before you start answering. This is very important. Most candidates are interested in answering questions rather than filling the basic information, because after the examiner marks the paper, where is he going to record your answers, or where is he going to record your score? Without an index number, it is assumed that the paper belongs to no one. So you have to feel that is also very important. So reading and following instructions is very important. Candidates who actually make it are those who read and follow instructions. So the next thing that I will talk about has to do with paying attention to command words in examination. This is equally very important. If you really want to pass an examination, then you have to pay attention to command words. The command words will guide you as to how the examiner wants you to present your answers. So some of them are the list, state, explain, discuss, analyze, justify, quote, right? The most important thing is that do not go contrary to the command words of the examination. This is very important. Going contrary to the command words in examination clearly tells the examiner that you haven't fully understood the question, and understanding the question is part of answering the question, as most people will say. It is true. Once you're able to understand the question, it becomes easier for you to answer it. So once you pay attention to the command words, it becomes easier for you to know what you're expected to do. For instance, if you are asked to discuss and you decide to list, you're going to get marks for only listing, but the marks that comes to explaining what you have listed will not be awarded to you or will not be given to you. So it is very important to pay attention to command words. This is an examination. You're not there to write what you want. You're there to answer according to what the question has instructed you to do. So it's important for you to pay attention to command words and also learn what is expected of you. When you're asked to state, what do you do? When you're asked to discuss, do you just let the point and go away? Or when you're asked to analyze or justify something, what do you do? Or when you're asked a question, in your own opinion, what do you think? What do you do? So it is important to know what all these command words mean and what goes into them, so that when you're presenting your answers, you know exactly what to write. This is very important. So the next thing you have to do if you want to pass Wassce is to assume that everything is potentially coming. This is equally very important. So you have to assume that everything your teacher is teaching you or everything you're learning is potentially coming in the examination, and that you're going to be asked to answer questions on them. Once you do this, you precondition your mind to understand a whole lot. So you broaden your scope of understanding, and whatever that comes in the examination, you're able to answer it. The dangerous thing that candidates do is that they rather depend on leakages or examination malpractices, and this costs them their grades. You don't know, but sometimes these leakages do come in examination. They do come, and we know that they do come. Our candidates sometimes depend on them, and when they don't come, it is a disaster because they end up messing up. But and the other thing is that sometimes they come and candidates still fail and they don't understand why they have failed. This is because they haven't really learned anything at all. So in some subjects, when you get your leakages, you can still make it even if you don't get the A or the B, but you will not fail. But in other subjects, even if you get leakages, you still go on the flop if you haven't really invested your time in learning those subjects. So for instance, your integrated science, your mathematics, and subjects like literature. So even if you get a leakages, you're still not going to make it if you haven't been learning. So in mathematics and in science, where you have to answer a lot of questions, candidates who get leakages and they are already learning will be able to score good grades because, for instance, when you take the paper, you look at question one, okay, you know it already. Question two, you know it already. And one B, you don't know. Then you go and learn that before it's time for the examination. But somebody who hasn't really learned anything at all, the whole paper is something that you cannot answer. So you're looking at, you can't answer number one, you can't answer number one B, you can't answer number two C, and you're looking for the answers and all of that. And by the time you see, it will be time for you to go and write the examination, and you haven't really learned anything and you will still fail. So that is why most candidates will complain that even the paper leaked, but they fail. They fail because they haven't already been learning. So it is important for you to assume that everything is potentially coming. You can only do selective learning or be selective in what you learn when you are some days to the examination, by then you have already learned a lot of things and you just want to brush over certain things or certain important aspect, that is understandable. But once you're learning and you decide to be picky in your learning, it's going to affect you because the syllabus is very bulk, it's very big, and you don't even know where the questions are going to come from. And you decide to choose what you think will come and answer them. And the moment those topics do not come, candidates find themselves wanting. So the other thing that you have to do in one examination has to do with creating a positive first impression. This is very important. First impressions are necessary everywhere, and even in examination, they are necessary. And when I say creating the first impression, what it simply means is that answering your best question first. This is very important. Whenever the examiner picks up your paper, the person makes an impression of you. So the first question he or she will mark will inform him or her the kind of candidate that you are. So if you pick up a candidate's paper and the handwriting is very beautiful, the things are beautifully written, you can clearly see that the AC has been paragraphed, well paragraphed, there's an intro, there's a conclusion. When you read the intro and realize that, wow, this candidate knows what he's doing. The examiner might not really read all everything that you have written. He'll just read the intro, read the conclusion, and just mark you and go on. And that will run through to the other questions that you're answering. But if in case your very first question or very first answer gives a very bad impression about you, the examiner will now take time to read what you have written because he doesn't want to get into trouble in case he scores you and it is later found out that you don't deserve those marks. So the examiner wants to read and know if you really deserve the marks that he's going to give you. So with that, the person will take the pain of reading through everything that you have written. So you have to create a very positive or good first impression. Answer your best question first. It is very important. It doesn't matter if it is the simplest question in examination. Nobody is going to hold you for answering a simple question in examination. So be honest with you, there's no simple question in examination. You only find that the question is simple because you know the answer. Any question that you cannot answer becomes automatically difficult. So you have to answer your first question first and create a good first impression. Always present neat answers. Do your rough work at the last page of the paper. Do your drafting, your planning, your everything there. Then come and present your essays or your answers on the fresh page. So that when the examiner sees them, there will be no cancellations and all those things. Even though it is not wrong to cancel an examination, but please do not overdo them. When you write something that is wrong, just rule it out once. Do not try to paint it. Master, this is not a painting job. You don't have to paint a wrong answer. Just rule it out once. The examiner will not read it. Even if he reads it, he's not going to use that as part of his criteria for assessing what you have written. No, you have clearly shown that this what you have written has been ruled out. It is no longer part of what you have done. So the examiner will not use that as part of his criteria for assessing you. This is also very important. Then the next thing you have to do is to seal the demands of the question. This is very, very important. This is just the whole examination, suiting the demands of the question. If you're not able to seal the demands of the question, it is considered that the candidate has deviated or what is technically called as digression. You have gone out of the box. So that is what it means. So you have to read the question again, follow instructions, and answer the questions as instructed by the question. Do not assume anything in examination. Don't say, oh, here the examiner wanted to say this and they intentionally did this so that we'll get confused. If you do that, you will end up deviating. Answer the questions as instructed by the question. If you really want to see the demands of the question, you need to break down the question, know how to answer it, and know how to answer every aspect of the question. Sometimes the question might be talking about cause and effect, then you decide to write on only causes, you lose out marks for the effects aspect. So you have to understand fully what the question demands of you, understand the requirements of the question, and answer your questions accordingly. Then you have to present well planned and logically structured answers. This is also very important when it comes to examination. Your answers should be well planned, logically presented. They should be chronological, they should be systematic, and they should express exactly what you want to say. This is also very important. They should be written to the point. They should express exactly what you intend to say. And when the examiner picks up your paper, he should know that this is an introduction. He should know this is the body. The person should know this is the conclusion. The paragraph should be clearly visible. Don't just jam up your answers and write them. In examination, writing up your answers is not just what is needed, it is how well you present your answers. So most candidates score low marks or feel entitled because they end up presenting their answers haphazardly without any care. They just write anything that they want to write, or even they present the right answers in the wrong manner, which will cause them their grade. It is very important for you to present your answers in a well planned and logically structured paragraphs. Then the next thing I'm going to talk about has to do with presenting selective answers. Presenting selective answers is very important when it comes to examination. Whenever an examiner picks up your script to mark it, the question the examiner will ask himself is the candidate selective of information? This is very important. The aim of the examination is not for you to write whatever that you know when it comes to a particular topic. No, we have a topic and we have subtopics. Sometimes the question is asking you about a subtopic. Just go straight to the point and present selective answers. No examiner wants you to go and write about the whole topic without necessarily suiting the demands of the question. So, for instance, if you're asked to write about the importance of family, and because you know family so well, we start a family is a group of people related by blood, marriage, or adoption. We have three types of family. We have this type, we have this type, and the grandfather is this, and the mother is this, and the father does what. The question is, what you have written, has it been able to satisfy the demands of the question? If the answer is no, the examiner will just mark it wrong because your answers are not selective of information. In examination, you don't write everything that you know concerning a topic. No, you write the answers based on what the question is asking you. And another thing that candidates do, which causes them their grade, has to do with writing unnecessary things. All the examples, all the explanations, all the illustrations that you're going to give should help you in answering the question or suiting the demands of the question. Once your answers or once your examples or whatever you're writing is not helping you to answer the question, don't write it. Don't write things for the fun of them because you have learned something, you have to write it. No, you write what is expected of you, and this is very important. If not, at the end of the day, you will end up deviating from what is needed, or you end up circling around the topic without really answering the question that you are demanded or asked to do. So it is very important for you to present selective answers. Another thing candidates have to avoid is over elaboration. No examiner is interested in that. No examiner wants over elaborated answers. Once you write your answers, make sure they are clearly written to the point. That is what is important. Your answers should be relevant, they should be concise, and they should express what you intend to say. That is because no examiner is going to assume anything for you when marking. The thing is that examiners mark only what you have written down and will not make any effort whatsoever to correct you or try to fix in anything for you or assume that the candidate could have done better. No, they just mark exactly what you have written on the paper, except on few lenient ones who will want to give you the benefit of the doubt. Other than that, you have to avoid over elaboration. Why examiners love qualitative answers other than quantitative answers? So sometimes you come and somebody will be like, oh, I wrote more than this person. It is not about writing more than somebody or filling the whole answer booklet. I personally believe that a candidate who is able to fill the answer booklet, especially when it comes to the reading subjects, has clearly deviated. You know, the moment you start to over elaborate, it clearly tells the examiner that this candidate is not sure of what he or she is writing. So they find several ways of writing the same thing to the understanding of the examiner. So with the first point, we explain the same thing. The second paragraph will still explain the same thing. So you see, over elaboration is not necessary. And if you are over elaborating, you end up regurgitating your own points. You see that the answer that the person presented, the first point you presented is the same thing as the point you're presenting, and the third point. So over elaborations are not needed. Always present qualitative answers. If you want to really impress an examiner, present qualitative answers and not quantitative answers. No examiner is ever impressed with quantitative answers because you only waste the time of the examiner. Examiners have a whole lot of papers to mark, and they can't spend the whole day trying to mark one person's paper. This is something that you have to know. So you have to make sure that your answers are clearly written to the point and they express exactly what you intend to communicate. Then again, do not try to prove to the examiner how much you know concerning a particular topic that a question has been taken from. This is also not necessary. Examiners are not interested in how much you know about a particular topic. What they are interested in is how well you have been able to see the demands of the question. So, if you really want to impress an examiner, try to see the demands of the question and not write everything you know concerning a particular topic. That you will end up circling around and around and around without necessarily answering the question. So do not try to prove to the examiner how much you know concerning a particular topic. Or okay, this is your favorite topic and it came in examination. You're going to write everything you know about that particular topic. That is wrong. Where examiners are not interested in how much you know, you will only end up wasting your time, and the examiner will not equally be fascinated by what you have done. So at the end of the day, you have wasted the examiner's time and you have made him very, very angry as well. So please do not try to prove to the examiner how much you know. Then again, one thing I will always tell candidates is that you have to answer a lot of past questions. Answering past questions is a sure way of passing WAEC examination. Just imagine the year candidates started writing WAEC examination. Where do you think WAEC is going to get fresh questions? You know, the syllabus remains fairly the same, unless of course some few things have been taken out and other things have been added. Other than that, you're still writing the intersigns that somebody in 1990 wrote. You're still writing the English language that somebody in 1990 also wrote. So it is important for you to answer past questions. And once you answer past questions, you get to know the aspect of the syllable or the curriculum that the examination tend to focus on. There are some topics that are basic to the examination or the examination board, so they always repeat them. Others are not so important to them, so they fairly bring them or they bring them once in a while. So answering past questions will expose you to the frequent or most asked topics in examination so that you work on them and you'll be able to make it an examination. And you have to always make a conscious effort to understand what you are learning or answering. It is very important. Understanding is key here. What most candidates tend to do is that they try to memorize answers. The thing is that, in as much as Wayik repeats past questions, they don't repeat them verbatim, they don't repeat them word for word. So you might see the same question but in a different construction. So your ability to understand that will inform you when you enter the examination hall that, okay, number one is the past question from 1990, but instead of the examiner saying this, you already said that, okay, I get it. And what answers did they provide? Then you can now provide the answers. This is very important. Answering past questions is key. Then again, you must make a conscious effort to read the chief examiner's report. This is also very, very important. Candidates don't give a damn whatsoever about the chief examiner's report, and this will end up costing them their grades because they end up repeating the mistakes that their seniors have done in white examination, which is very bad. Sometimes when you're marking white papers, you end up asking yourself, are these the same candidates who wrote last year? Because they are repeating almost the mistakes that the previous batch made. So it's important for you to read the chief examiner's report. The chief examiner's report will expose you to the strengths of candidates and the mistakes that candidates have made and how to remedy these mistakes. So it is very important for you to read them, know the mistakes that candidates made, know their strengths, know their weaknesses, and know the suggestions that the chief examiner is given or how those mistakes can be corrected. So once you do that, you enter the examination hall fully prepared for anything and everything. Another thing I want to elaborate on has to do with Presenting your answers as instructed by the question. This is also very important. You have to present your answers as instructed by the question. If you're answering a question that is number one, please, when you're answering, just write number one. Don't write A or don't write I. This is very wrong. You don't have to do that. Answer the questions as instructed by the question. So when you're answering number two, write number two. Don't write B. B is not the same as number two. So once you do that, you end up confusing the examiner as to what you're really answering. If you're answering number three, write number three. Don't write I, because on the question paper, there's no question that has been numbered I. So what are you answering? This is very important. So in the marking scheme, the examiner has only the numbers of the questions. So if you end up writing or mixing up the questions that are as instructed by the question, it is going to cost you your grade. Then again, you have to present your answers as instructed by the question. If the question says tabulate, even if you're differentiating something and the person tells you to tabulate your answers, you have to do that. If you write them in the sentence form, you have yourself to blame. It doesn't mean you're intelligent, it only means that you don't obey instructions. If the question tells you without using a calculator and you decide to use the calculator, you arrive at a different figure, or you might skip certain procedures that are unnecessary that you will not do, and that will cost you your grade. If the question tells you to discuss and you decide to list, that is another thing. So always present your answers as instructed by the question. If the question is asking you to draw or with the aid of a diagram illustrate a water cycle, and you decide to write about water cycle, the heat from the sun causes evaporation and blah blah blah. Nobody needs that in the examination. Answer the questions as instructed by the question. Then again, you have to use the right language and communicating your ideas effectively and efficiently. In examination, using the right language is very important because you're not going to be there to be explaining to the examiner that, oh, here I wanted to write this, here I really mean this and not that. So that is very important, using the right language to communicate your ideas. And you have to know that every subject has specific words that are very key to the subject. So once you're explaining something in literature, you know the literary terms that you're going to use. Once you are explaining something in geography, in government, and history, you know exactly what to say. There are certain words that are very key to the examination, so you have to use them and don't write the everyday English that you know. No, use the words or the language of the subject to answer questions on that particular subject. That is equally very, very important. Then the last thing I'm going to talk about has to do with time management. Time management is very important in an examination. Sometimes it is very important for you to go to the section that you can answer best and start answering from that particular place. So for instance, in English language, when you enter the objectives, if it is best complete that you can answer best, you go there and start answering the questions. If you can answer sentence interpretation best, you go there and start answering. If you can answer summary question when you take the theory paper, you go there and start answering first. That is very important. If you're answering a question that, or if you get to a question that you cannot answer at the moment, just skip it and go to the next question. You can come back when you're done with the other questions. And it is very important for you not to waste your time on one question. The thing is that no matter how impressed an examiner is with you concerning how much you have written about a particular question, that person can ask for you more than the marks that has been allocated on the marking scheme. So if the total mark is 10, the best the examiner can give you is 10. He cannot go beyond that. It is very important for you to answer the required number of questions, nothing more, nothing less. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. So we'll meet again in our next lesson. Bye for now.